Welcome to Exhibition, an Xbox podcast, episode number 22. A couple of days early because normally this Xbox podcast is uploaded on Sundays at around 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That is not the case this week because the open beta for Battlefield 2042 is going to be running all weekend. So I figured you guys would be diving in and I wanted to share my thoughts and my experience so far. On top of that, in today's show, we also have a new 20th anniversary controller and headset combo coming from the team at Xbox, and we'll be discussing some controversial new changes in both Destiny 2 and Marvel's Avengers. A pretty good show for you lined up today, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's start things off with some talk on Battlefield. Now, if you do want to dive into this weekend's Battlefield 2042 open beta, it's out right now on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and I would recommend diving in and giving it a shot because this is one of the biggest first-person shooters of the year. We've talked about it before, but you have this trifecta of Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Halo all coming out within just a couple of weeks of each other. So for first-person shooter fans, this is going to be a massive holiday season. But I did want to share my impressions just because I feel like I've got a more, I suppose, constructive take, to say it in a non-negative way, but this game should be delayed. Personally, I think that Battlefield 2042 is in need of a delay. At first, I thought that it could use a 6-month delay, but I think that it could really be useful to push this game into February. And I say that with a couple of caveats, because the developers have said this is a build of the game that is a couple of months old. So in the same way that the first Halo Infinite test flight felt much worse than the second Halo Infinite test flight, that could potentially be what you see here with Battlefield 2042. So my hopes are still there, but after diving in on day one, it was very clear that server issues were rampant to the point that I thought they were actually gameplay mechanics issues. It was not running well on the Xbox Series X, a lot of visual glitches, a lot of issues in terms of gameplay mechanics. There were just so many issues that were happening with the game that I was under the impression that it was actually not server related. But after going to work, coming back, diving in, and giving it another shot, everything got kind of ironed out and I began to really hit my stride. And at its heart, Battlefield 2042 is a Battlefield 3 or a Battlefield 4. There is not one trace of Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5 in this game. Not a single one. And that kind of blows my mind a bit. I kind of expected there to be at least some kind of remnant of these last couple of games, but none whatsoever. This is entirely modern. And one of my biggest issues that I have with the game actually comes from the user experience itself, the user interface, because I'm sure that it works much, much better on PC, but for console players, this user interface is so difficult to navigate, especially when it comes to customizing your kit and picking out whether you want to be an engineer, assault class, medic, whatever it might be. That is such a cumbersome experience that it becomes almost impactful to my overall experience in the game itself. And so I hope that they keep working with it and keep ironing out the kinks. But there are so many issues with that specific part of the game for me that I couldn't help but mention it. However, that side of the user experience is offset pretty greatly by the new cross customization system that they've got. And you see that in this specific trailer whenever the customization is happening within the elevator, where the operator turns their gun and the cross pops up and they can change out what sights they've got, what kind of barrels they've got, what mags they've got, that kind of thing on the fly. And it's worth noting, that is the customization menu. That's what you use. There are no other customization menus at this point in the game. That's how you change your sights. That's how you change your mags, all of that stuff. And I find it to be incredibly intuitive. I find it to be very nice. And on top of that, it's also nice to be able to change your kit on the fly. So if I navigate using my grappling hook up to the top of a skyscraper, it's good to be able to change from a red dot to a 6x ACOG, something like that, to be able to get that range element in and to be able to actually be a competitive player up on the top rather than on the ground. It's good because I can't change weapons. I think that if I could change weapons, it would be the equivalent of one-man army in Modern Warfare 2, where people would just continually grind and churn and change weapons because no one really needs that in this game to remain competitive. but it is cool to be able to change those elements on the fly like that. Now, one of the issues that I also take with this game is that it still feels very floaty when it comes to gameplay in a vehicle sense. The truck, I'm not sure what truck it is, but the truck and the four-wheeler feel kind of a little bit too loose. I'm not sure how to really describe it, but that could use some fine tuning. I have not had the chance to get into a tank. I've not had the chance to get into a jet. That's not really how I play Battlefield personally. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that the foundation is there. It's got a very solid core gameplay loop that I like, and I think the map that they have in the trailer is solid. But I think I'm going to be waiting 3 to 6 months for this one to let the server issues iron out, to let some more content come down the pipe, because I know this is going to be the best Battlefield that there has been in years. I just don't know that it will be in launch. And I was talking to a friend about it, and I think the best way that I can describe this game is that I think this is going to launch in the same way that Battlefield 4 launched on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, because that was a very similar situation. You had this cross-generational leap that was happening, and there were some issues that came with that. And so if you remember, Battlefield 4 became one of the most beloved Battlefield games of all time. But at launch, wasn't running that great. There were plenty of launch issues on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and in fact, I believe that it might have gotten delayed by a couple of weeks, if I remember correctly. And so I think that's a similar kind of situation to what you're getting here, obviously cutting it very close with the delay as it already stands. It seems like they're going to be crunching pretty hardcore overtime over there at Electronic Arts to make this one happen. But I digress. Still one of the biggest first-person shooters of the year. And if I had to rate the open beta, I'd say this is like between a 6 and a 7, I think, is where I'm going to land on this one. The guns feel pretty good whenever the servers are running very well and it's kind of minimal lag. Crossplay actually is functional, so that's nice to see. But overall, I still think it could use a couple of months of polish. So if you're diving in this weekend, let me know what you think in the comments section down below. If you've already had a chance to check it out, let me know, or hit me up on Twitter, whatever you need to do. I would love to hear your thoughts. And overall, really exciting to see the game coming to fruition and really coming into its own, but I'm just not really sure that it's quite there yet. That's kind of my takeaway. Now let's talk about celebrating 20 years of play with the team at Xbox with a brand new controller and headset. This was teased earlier this week, but unfortunately, Best Buy Canada actually leaked it a bit early, and then the team at Xbox just let the cat out of the bag, and so here is what you are going to get. Essentially, these are $70 a pop. You can get the wired stereo headset or the wireless controller, both of which come with all of the new bells and whistles from this newest generation of Xbox. But let's hear it straight from the Xbox Wire itself. Today, we celebrate our history together with the 20th Anniversary Special Edition Xbox Wireless Controller and 20th Anniversary Special Edition Xbox Stereo Headset, launching November the 15th and available for pre-order now. We were inspired by our favorite memories together from the last 20 years and created not one, but 2 unique accessories to commemorate this milestone. And as you can see, the controller itself is great. You've got green accents around the D-pad, on the button itself, the face button, and then you've got some back green paddles that really do bring that Xbox tone that we all kind of know and a lot of people grew up with. Then, of course, you have the 20th anniversary logo right there below the A button. And overall, the controller is beautiful because it is translucent. You can see directly through it to the internals of the controller, which is a callback to the original developer debug kit whenever it was a translucent green. So all things considered, this really does capture the essence of Xbox through the years. And I love the fact that they're using the Jump In campaign here on the 20th anniversary to commemorate the Xbox 360 and showcase what that console really did bring to the table. But overall, beautiful controller. For me, I love these controllers. I love special edition controllers, and if I had limitless amounts of money, I would collect every single one of them. But I know ultimately I won't put this thing through the ringer. I won't use it to its fullest potential because I'm still using my day one in the box Xbox wireless controller because it's functional, and this one doesn't add any additional benefit outside of having a green button. That's what I thought, until I continued reading. The 20th anniversary special edition controller benefits from all of the features of our newest Xbox wireless controllers, but when you connect this controller to your Xbox Series X and S console, you will unlock an exclusive 20th anniversary dynamic background, and this can be repeated with a friend's console. So no matter what console you plug this controller into, you can actually apply a dynamic wallpaper that is not going to be widely available. I love the fact that they installed a wallpaper on this controller that immediately is available for any console you plug it into in the Xbox Series X and S family. That's cool. I think that's cooler than the look of the controller itself. And so while I'm still not going to be picking one up on day one, I think this is an incredible innovation and one that I think would be neat to leverage for other controllers. For instance, a special edition Far Cry controller could come with a Far Cry wallpaper, or a Halo controller with a Halo wallpaper. I love that idea, and I think it would be very much so worthwhile for the marketing team to put that idea into action. But on top of that, if you want to go the extra mile, you've got an Xbox Series X and S stereo headset. If you do want to use this, of course, this is going to be compatible with everything: Xbox One, Series X, Series S, PC, whatever it might be. You can actually use this right now, but this has the same translucent look on the ear cups. On top of that, the Xbox logo on the right, the 20th anniversary logo on the left, and some green accents all around. In short, for $150, give or take, you can get a pretty solid combo of 20th anniversary celebratory accessories. I'm loving the look, so, I might dive in, but still, $70 for a special edition controller. A little bit much for me, but that dynamic wallpaper, I don't know, I keep going back and forth on it. I love the look though, I love the sentiment, and I am so excited to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Xbox with a new Halo game, and on top of that, a slew of new accessories to celebrate not only the new Halo, and the 20th anniversary of Halo, I should say, but also the 20th anniversary of Xbox. That's not where the action stops, though, because there's also a couple of other bells and whistles here. If you pick up the 20th Anniversary Limited Edition controller, you can get a quick charging stand from Razer, and on top of that, some new 20th Anniversary Xbox gear. So plenty of stuff for everyone if you do want to dive in this holiday season. Again, pre-orders are up now at a variety of retailers, including on the Microsoft Store. Now we're diving into a couple of controversial stories, starting things off with Marvel's Avengers. This story comes from Chris Scullion over at VGC, who writes, "Paid XP boosts have been added to the Avengers, despite promises it would never happen." Following the title's arrival on Xbox Game Pass last week, its in-game marketplace has added the option to buy consumables with credits, which can only be bought with real money. Consumables can be used to temporarily boost the amount of XP a player gains or increase the number of resources they collect while playing, essentially acting like an accelerator to ensure faster progress. This news has angered fans of the game who believe the developer and publisher have gone back on a promise that paid microtransactions would only ever apply to cosmetics. And the story goes on to share more details, but that's pretty much the gist of where things sit right now. The situation here is very complex because once the game had been added to Xbox Game Pass, the entire dynamic changed because the game is now in the top 5 Xbox Game Pass games. We're talking about Forza Horizon 4. We're talking about Halo the Master Chief Collection. This game is climbing the ranks, and with a name like the Avengers, it's no question why. People want to check out very, very popular IP, and the sentiment for the game changed drastically over the course of the last 2 weeks because you saw these people that had been dogging so heavily on Avengers up until this point say, "I'll check it out with Game Pass." Turns out, not that bad of a game. Turns out, pretty fun. And so people started to play this game. Now, Marvel and, of course, Square Enix see the potential to make more money. I think that's what it comes down to. That's just my hypothesis. But when you've got millions of new players diving in, it seems like the perfect opportunity for a cash grab. It seems like this is your chance to make that money back. And I have a couple of different feelings about this. First and foremost, from a business perspective, I get it. I understand. But from a gamer's perspective, I hate the fact that they went back on their word. I don't think that XP boost in this game are that big of a deal because this is a PvE game. But in terms of ownership and in terms of earning what you have, I know that there are so many people that have been grinding this game for over a year, and there's going to be somebody that comes in, drops $100 or more, and is right where they are. Should that impact my gameplay experience? Not really, but does it impact my perception of the game? Yeah, probably. And so it's not a great look whenever a developer goes back on their word. I think that's really what it comes down to here. But the third perspective that I have on this is that if this game continues to make tons and tons of money through microtransactions or players or whatever it might be, I think this is going to be a great way for Xbox to win over the favor of larger games, larger publishers, potentially give Marvel's notice, that kind of thing. Of course, we already saw some Disney Plus integrations earlier this year, so I'm sure those conversations are already being had. But to be able to prove the value of Xbox Game Pass and to be able to prove the power that it brings to smaller games or games that are floundering, I think that is going to be very impactful for how the catalog continues to evolve in the years ahead. And I think the Marvel's Avengers is going to be a case study of how a game can be poorly received, but then see a huge resurgence by being added to this service, and potentially, with microtransactions included there, turn a profit, depending on how big these things sell. Personally, I hate the idea of buying microtransactions. I don't like it at all. I don't mind cosmetics. I think Fortnite has a pretty good balance of how it's done. I think Epic has done a very good job with that. But ultimately, I just don't like the way this is going. I have Marvel's Avengers installed right now. I have not gone in and actually checked it out. I've been playing Battlefield 2042, as we discussed, and Sable on the PC. But certainly one that I'll be diving into this holiday season. As more games have gotten delayed, my schedule's freed up, and since I'm probably going to be waiting on Battlefield 2042, seems like Marvel's Avengers could be a good move for the year. But another game I'm going to be diving into is going to be Destiny 2, but it's removing the Forsaken campaign next year. And this is not something that's new. Bungie has removed campaigns from Destiny before to make room for more campaigns. But this story comes from Matthew Reynolds over at Eurogamer, who writes, Bungie has announced how much of Destiny 2's Forsaken expansion will be vaulted when the next expansion, The Witch Queen, arrives next year. As of the 22nd of February, Forsaken's campaign, the Tangled Shore destination, and the bulk of Year 4's seasonal content, including the fan-favorite Presage and Harbinger missions, will be removed from the game. Bungie clarified not all of Forsaken's content will disappear, with the Dreaming City destination, Last Wish Raid, Shattered Throne Dungeon, and associated strikes remaining in the game, while Year 4's Proving Ground strike and Battlegrounds will remain. They write, quote, vaulting this content will allow us the space to launch the Witch Queen expansion and its new Throne World destination, as well as new features like weapon crafting, the new Legendary Difficulty campaign option, the new Glaive weapon archetype, plus all of the additional content we have planned for the 4 new seasons to come starting in February. And again, that's straight from the Bungie Content Vault update on their official blog. But I think the real insights come from an interview with Eurogamer a couple of months back, where Justin Truman, general manager at Bungie, confirmed plans to vault aspects of Forsaken, saying, quote, I think in the same way we don't want 8 raids, it's the same thing with storylines. We don't want when a new player enters into Destiny, there's 5 different competing storylines that they could start playing, and in some of them, Aldrin's a good guy, and in some of them, he's a bad guy, and it's not clear if you're playing them out of order, end quote. With that perspective into consideration, I think this makes sense, and it's interesting they're focusing more on the new players that are going to be coming in versus catering to the core fan base, because these two groups of people, the core fan base will continue to yell and talk because they talk about Destiny on social media. That's their bread, their butter, the streamers, they talk about that. The players that are diving in, and the first-time players, these people aren't necessarily going to be as vocal about Destiny 2. And quite frankly, they won't really care that the Forsaken content isn't there, because the vault doesn't mean that it's going away forever. It simply means that it's going to be put on ice and brought back at a later date, in kind of a seasonal rotation. Some stuff will be vaulted forever, I'm sure, but occasionally stuff will potentially leak out and come back into the game. And so I think that they're focusing more on the future because Destiny 2 has a big opportunity this year with Battlefield 2042 and Call of Duty not looking that great. I think that there is potential for Destiny 2 to be the fallback for a lot of people, and you kind of see that leading up to the Witch Queen, which is set to be a massive expansion, the biggest in Destiny's history. And so I think that leading up to that, more and more people will be diving in. Of course, we talked about this last week, but Destiny 2 Beyond Light is coming to Game Pass on PC. I think it's already available on console. And so that is a really exciting opportunity for players to dive in, check everything out, and get invested in the world of Destiny. On top of that, it is a free-to-play game, at least at its core. So you can get into Destiny with no money down. That's a pretty big win. And so as more people check it out, fall in love, keep playing, and then invest in buying the expansions, that's where you start to see new players come in and get excited for the Witch Queen, and the Forsaken content going away to free up room for the Witch Queen. It makes sense. Longtime players won't like it, but it makes sense. So between Marvel's Avengers and Destiny 2, there are some pretty big changes going on in the world of Game Pass games, but I think that Destiny 2 is a whole lot better received than Marvel's Avengers. But at the end of the day, these two games represent that there are some massive games in Game Pass that are generating headlines, that people are talking about, and that people are invested in. Because when people talk about Avengers and when people talk about Destiny 2, that's when you know they care. And I think that's a big win for Xbox, and it's a big win for the people behind these games themselves. But I'm excited to dive into both of these in the months ahead. I haven't played either of them in a deep way, I suppose you could say. I've tried the Avengers, I've tried Destiny 2, so I'm excited to go back and give them a fair shake in the months ahead, because it is going to be a very dry holiday season ahead of a very saturated spring with tons of games coming out in the first 3 to 4 months of 2022. But certainly some big changes for these couple of games. That wraps up today's episode of Xhibition, an Xbox podcast. If you enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or on a podcast feed of your choice and get the show delivered to you every single Sunday. But in the comment section down below, if you have a comment section, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know what games you are looking forward to this holiday season. For me, Metroid Dread, which launches today as of this recording, is a pretty exciting one for me. But on top of that, Halo Infinite, of course, is top first and foremost, and Forza Horizon 5, very much so looking forward to that pair. So, until next week, you guys have a fantastic one, and keep on playing.